Good morning or good afternoon, whenever you're listening, and welcome to this super special 100th episode of Your Bookkeeping Matters. I honestly can't believe we're here, and what better way to mark this milestone than with a guest who I have so much respect and love for, who brings a refreshing level of honesty, care, and clarity. And I think every small business owner needs this in their corner. I'm talking about Tracey Mylecharane from TM Solicitor. She is a small business lawyer, strategist, and long-time advocate for doing legals differently in a way that protects you and supports your growth at the same time. You may already know her or have tuned into a past guest episode, and today she is back to talk through the real life business issues we see pop up again and again, the ones we wish more business owners knew to look for. From contracts to payments and everything in between, we're chatting about the huge ripple or flow-on effect that happens when legals and numbers are often overlooked, and how getting the right advice early on can completely change the direction and success of your business. This one is for anyone who's ever wondered if they're doing it right. I'm so grateful to have Tracey on, and I hope this episode leaves you feeling inspired, empowered, and ready to back yourself. Let's have a listen. Hello to you, Tracey. Welcome back. It has been a while since we did our last episode. How are you?
Oh, I'm great and so happy to be doing this with you, Lisa. Oh my gosh, where does the time go?
Just disappears. I had a look last night, and our last episode was back in November 2022 when you were on the show last time. So,
Wow. Wow. All right, we're well overdue. Delighted to be doing this.
well, as you know, it's a special episode, and you and I have had so many great chats behind the scenes about all of this stuff. But to start us off, I would love to know, what are the top one or two legal problems you see small businesses run into all the time?
Oh gosh, great question. I'm going to do my best to limit it to one or two.
I knew that, so I was like, one's too hard. Let's go one or two.
The biggest thing I see when small business owners reach out to me is that they have either DIY'd their client agreements or they're winging it with none. And no shade, no judgment. It comes about from people being so busy, setting up, doing all the things with their branding, getting their website. And because legals aren't particularly sexy, well, they are to me, as you know, but most business owners don't think they're sexy. I know you do.
Yeah.
Because of that, though, they're not glossy, they're not attractive, it's not a website, it's not a brand, it's not a logo, so people don't prioritize it. And what I find when business owners reach out to me is they're reaching out because they're in a pickle. Either I've got a tricky situation with a client because I haven't been paid, there's a misaligned expectation around payment terms, or scope creep. I've issued an extra invoice because I did work that was out of scope, but there's nothing in their client agreement, if they have one, to support them. That's the biggest thing, that lack of support, because they don't have the agreements. That's the first thing I see when they reach out. The second thing would be not understanding it. So if a business owner has purchased a template, say, or they've borrowed an agreement from somebody because they've got a similar business and it'll be right, I'll just use theirs, they don't actually understand how the terms and provisions in those agreements work. So when they have taken on a client and onboarded and they're doing all their beautiful work, they're not necessarily acting consistent with the agreement that they've issued, either in delivery or invoicing or payment terms, and that can bring business owners unstuck too. Those are probably
Because
the two
they're
biggest.
trying to enforce something that wasn't agreed upon.
Yeah, that's right. And because we have the Australian consumer law, which applies to just about every service-based business owner, they haven't got the sequencing right, and they don't realise that if they don't comply with the requirements of the consumer law, if they get into a tricky situation, they're basically left with nothing to support them. So the DIY document or the template document or the few points, dot points that they've put on the bottom of their invoice thinking these are their terms, useless, don't apply, can't rely on them. So you're left with nothing.
Tell me a little bit more about what you mean with the sequencing part. I know what that means, but what do you mean they're not following the right sequencing?
Yeah. So what a lot of business owners don't realize is that there's actually an order of things that you need to comply with when onboarding a client. And by that, I mean issuing your terms or your agreement to your client, issuing quotes or proposals, and invoices all need to be done in a certain order. And the reason for that is because the consumer law says whenever you're going to do business with someone, they have to be given an opportunity to consider your terms and conditions or your agreement before they decide to engage you. That's the requirement of the consumer law to keep it fair. So people can't lock themselves into something they haven't seen, or they can't be pressured or coerced or feel pressured and coerced and not have a reasonable opportunity to read it and think about whether, yeah, this feels good, I'm going to lock in with this business owner, or actually, no, these terms don't align with how I want to do business. This doesn't meet my needs, so I'll say no, thank you. They need to be given that opportunity. So where I see business owners go wrong often is particularly those using Dubsado for their onboarding or other CRMs. Here's my proposal. Here's my invoice. Thanks for signing up. Pay the invoice. Then we're going to issue our terms to you. Just because that's how it's set up in the system. Now,
Doesn't mean it's right.
doesn't mean it's right. So if that were to happen, and it happens more often than you'd care to count, but if that happens, when that business owner gets down the track and they've issued an invoice and the client comes back and says, well, no, I wasn't expecting that. I didn't think I'd be invoiced for that. And the business owner says, well, it's outside of scope and we're entitled to charge our hourly rate, so here it is. If they got that sequencing wrong, they're not entitled to rely on their agreement.
Because they forced the person to pay and engage before they knew what the agreement was.
That's right, because the person didn't have a reasonable opportunity to consider the terms before they decided to do business. So what that means is you're not entitled to rely on the agreement, which means you have nothing. And if the client says, I didn't think I was going to be invoiced for that, you need to say as the business owner, okay. And so that's a loss and you have to write that invoice off. You don't have a leg to stand on.
That's horrible for your cash flow, for your business, for your confidence, for your time of dealing with that. So many side things go wrong with that because of a DIY contract not in place in the right sequence.
Exactly. And what I find when business owners are time poor and stressed and they're triaging all the things at the beginning and they go, okay, I'm going to launch my business, or I've been operating for a while. I've got my website. I need to get clients in first before I can do all these things. So I'm going to grab this template, or I'm going to borrow someone else's. Sure, we all do the best we can at the time with the information we have. But the biggest gap, that's the biggest thing missing there that's leaving the business owners exposed, is not only the fact that the document may or may not serve them, it may or may not be good or compliant, but they don't have any knowledge or understanding on implementation. So no one's taken the time to sit with them to explain.
This is when you need to give the contract. Yeah.
This is the sequencing. This is why you need to do it. Let's have a look. How are you onboarding? No, let's tweak this, change that around. All right, now your contract says this. How do you do it? Well, we need to change the contract. No one takes the time to do that with them because they purchased a template, say, which means they don't know how to use it. So having it's one thing, knowing how to use it is another. These are like puzzle pieces. So that's why being so client-centric, part of what I do is focus on implementation. And I often say, I often say to clients, I'm really nosy. I want to know how you onboard. I want to see it.
But that's so you can protect them.
That's right. So I can see it and I can say, you need to change your proposal language, or we need to change the language in your contract. Let's just flick those two steps around in Dubsado or your CRM to make sure these are going out in the right order. So if ever a client says to you, oh no, I didn't think I had to pay for that, I wasn't expecting that invoice, the business owner beautifully, confidently and seamlessly can say, yeah, here it is. Here's the agreement. That's where it says. And the client says, oh, sorry, didn't read that. Sure. And all of a sudden, it's done and dusted. They move on to continue the work because it was all really clear. It's all outlined. And the client just says, oh, sorry, didn't read that. No problem. It doesn't have to blow up the whole relationship.
So it's a win-win. They've got nice contracts that are tailored to them, their business, how things are done, and they know when to issue it. I feel like we covered a lot of things that go wrong there. Does that cover your top second one as well, or there is another important one?
I think that was a really long way for me to answer your question. I love talking about this, as you can tell, because I just know that this is so important and so many people don't know it, so I get really excited. No, that's definitely all of my answer to that question. I'm sorry.
No, don't be. I'm the same. I love going through all of this with you. You know me. I need to know all the ins and outs of everything, regardless of it's something that I do myself. Even though you do my legals, I ask you so many questions because I want to know. I want to know, am I doing the right thing? Why am I doing it this way? And that's why I feel so supported with you as my solicitor, because I know I can ask the questions and there's no judgment and you just help. So all the long answers, all the information, don't ever apologize. It's part of what makes you who you are and why you provide such a great service.
Oh, thank you.
And I feel like because you have so much of that current insight and past experience that you bring to your business, why is it, do you think, so many business owners either avoid these or underestimate the legal side of running their business?
Two reasons, I think. One is because, let's be honest, this whole space, the legalities, it's overwhelming and confusing. There's a lot of information out there. And if you go and log on now and Google quick, cheap legal documents, you're going to get template law firms. There's actually, I don't know if you know this, but there's actually lawyers who sell templates. And I wholeheartedly, hand on heart, stand against that. I don't feel that's a service. I think you're doing people a disservice. I actually have a real issue with it because of the way you're leaving them exposed. But given that, it's easy for people to be confused. But
because they're getting that advice from what they perceive as correct.
But it's lawyer drafted. It must be good. Nuh-uh. Not necessarily so. So I feel like the space can be overwhelming and confusing. And I feel like for business owners, it can be challenging to drill down into the detail or to cut through all the noise to understand exactly what they need. Clearly, that's what I try to do for them, but not everyone finds me. There's a lot of noise in that space. It can be confusing. That's the first thing. And the second reason I think that that's what happens is because I genuinely don't think business owners realise that if done well, those legal documents can be the most powerful tool in the business. I feel like business owners think it's tick a box, tick and flick, something that are nice to have, not a must have, but really, and we've had this conversation before, if done well, those client agreements or T's and C's or whatever you want to call it, because you can call it anything to suit the business, they can be the most powerful tool a business has.
It can help guide what you're doing, your conversations with the clients, remove that awkwardness, because when questions pop up, you can just, like you've mentioned earlier, here's what we have in our agreement. If you'd like something else, let me prepare a proposal for you. Like, it just smooths everything and makes your business run smoother to have those really solid foundations to lean on. And I know some business owners, well, not some, I would say a lot, the cost. But can you talk to, completely off track, the cost involved and why it's actually more cost effective to invest up front?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're right with everything you've just said about the power that the documents bring. But what they also do, and this comes into cost, is if done well, they can help convert prospects to paying clients, because what we want is by the time a client has finished reading it, to be busting to work with the business, going, hell yes, I want to work with this business. Straight away, that's money. You've just onboarded a client. Your documents are a reflection of your business, trust, professionalism, confidence, all the things. Then helps navigate any potentially tricky situations that might come up without blowing up the relationship, without having to write off invoices. There's cost attached to that. Then if you deliver because you understand your documents so well, so you've delivered in accordance with your documents. So not only has the business been able to meet expectations, they've exceeded expectations. What does that mean? Well, we all know the value of happy clients as a business owner. Retention, word of mouth referral, positive reviews. That has a cost attached to it. So to answer your question, let's say you don't have any of that. You can hope that clients will choose you. You can hope it'll be okay. You can hope it goes well. And you can hope that they might say nice things about you. But hope's not a strategy. And it's very difficult to reconcile the costs or the opportunity cost of how many clients haven't onboarded with you, how many relationships haven't turned into repeat work, how many invoices have you written off, where is the scope creep, how do you reconcile the amount of scope creep, how much work have you actually done for free? There's all a cost to that. So that's the subliminal costs. But when you get into a situation where a client comes back and says, I'm not going to pay this 6K invoice because of this, and now I'm disgruntled, and now I'm going to tell 10 people or 20 people, because we all know unhappy clients tell more people than happy clients. There's a cost attached to that. So if you had to spend a couple of $1,000s at the beginning to get these done for you once and for all of a sudden, you're safeguarding and protecting against all of that. So it's hard to reconcile the cost, but I tell you what, I've never had a client say to me, or a business owner reach out and say to me, I really regret investing in really fabulously tailored legal documents. All my clients are happy. The team's clear. We know what we're doing. We don't have pushback on invoices. I've never had a client say, I regret that.
No, and everyone that I've referred to and clients that have given me feedback have loved what they've received or built with you as much as I love mine. And that is just gold to know that they're so happy with those things. And you've touched on it already. You work across both strategy with their business and where things are and legals, and it all ties in together. How do you see the relationship between having good advice and strong financial systems to be legally protected?
I'm going to answer that with a question for business owners. And I would say, what's your appetite for risk? And if a business owner says to me, I have a very healthy appetite for risk and I don't mind flying by the seat of my pants and hoping for the best, then I will say, good luck to you. I'm not the lawyer for you. Good luck to you. And I've never had a client say that, because none of them want to risk their house, their assets, their earning potential. None of them want to risk all of that. In fact, they want to safeguard. So long-term, sustainable business has to have solid legals, solid financial systems in order to grow, in order to
be successful and thrive.
That's right. Be successful. They go hand in hand. Having one without the other just seems odd. It's very lopsided to me. But I've also never had a client say to me, yeah, I want really strong legals, but I'm not going to worry about my financial systems. It doesn't happen, because in the strategic work that I do with them, we always talk about getting paid. It's the cash flow, the cornerstone of every small business. We know this. DIYing your financial systems is the same as DIYing your legal documents. It'll only get you so far, and it will leave you exposed at some point. We all hear the stories about, in their business, I'm using an Excel spreadsheet to record my revenue and my expenses, and straight away my blood runs cold, the same way it does when they say I'm DIYing my legals or I got a template. But what I love is these business owners are keen to up-level. Hey, Tracey, I need help with this. Can you help me? Absolutely. Let's dive in, because like I said earlier, when we make the decisions we make based on the information we have at the time. When we know better, we do better. So no judgment. We know better now. Let's focus on developing your strong legal foundations. Let's talk about the strategy. Let's talk about what you've got in place for cash flow and financial management. Do you need a great bookkeeper? I happen to know one. Do you need a great accountant? I happen to know one. They go hand in hand. I just don't have these conversations around the legals without at some point talking about the financial systems.
Exactly. All intertwined, all part of the framework that you need to have around you and your business for it to be sustainable and keep going. And if someone were to come to you brand new to your world and they don't know these things, because this is what we talk about all the time, you don't know what you don't know, and they go, oh, I don't think I need this yet. What would be your usual response to gently help them understand that might not be the best decision? Not someone that's talking risk appetite and things like that. I have so many business owners that genuinely don't comprehend at the early stages of their business how important these things are.
Yeah, and that's so many business owners, and that's okay. That's that's the place
Exactly.
that they're in, and that's all right. I take the time to explain exactly what we've just talked about. I like to cut through the noise though. So I just explain, first of all, here's your legal obligations under the consumer law. And if you don't have it, you don't have a leg to stand on, as long as you're comfortable with that. And a lot of them don't realise that, because some people still think that 6 or 7 dot points at the bottom of a quote or an invoice issued out of zero is T's and C's, and that they're protected. And they don't realise that nothing could be further from the truth. They don't know. So I explain that, and I explain just how powerful they can be, so they can then make an informed decision when they're triaging all their things, because there's a lot of things. When they're doing their triage and they've got their list, I like to encourage people to think about bringing legals to the top, or closer to the top than where it is, because of the value they bring, and because it can safeguard against so many things that can come up that I've seen. Hiccups arise, unexpected things arise. And just to shed some light and some perspective on that, I just try to share as much information as I can in a really simple way, so that people don't feel overwhelmed by it, so they can make their decisions.
You share it in such a genuinely helpful way. It's never from a judgmental or enforcing you must do these things. I've had so many conversations with you, and you always explain things so beautifully.
Oh, thank you. I try, because I feel like we're hard enough on ourselves as business owners. We don't need more judgment coming from anybody else, because truth is, no one can be harder on us than we are on ourselves. So that's just not necessary. So I like to be supportive and helpful and add value where I can.
Exactly. And so for anyone listening, feeling like they could be in these situations with either DIY or templated or even none, where would you recommend they start?
Great question. I would say the podcast. So my podcast, you and I just spoke about this. We've just hit more than 200 episodes now. And what I've tried to do in that podcast, they're all bite-sized, just to be able to make it easy for people to access the information that they need in their own time, in their own space, just to listen along. There's a ton of resources that I've written and shared on the resources page on the website. I often find, though, people are more interested in listening to information these days than reading, but it's there. Or reach out and let's have a conversation and let me answer the questions, because that's what I'm here for.
And the podcast is free. You can listen to it whenever you like.
Yeah.
You can re-listen, and you can get all this advice from Tracey without having to dedicate weeks and weeks and weeks of learning legal stuff. It's broken down really simply and super easy to understand. Cannot recommend the podcast enough. And we will, of course, put that in the show notes. It is a very valuable resource. Where can they find your podcast?
My podcast is called Rise Up in Business, and it's on all the platforms. And it's honestly one of my favorite things in my business, because it's my way of being able to share what I hope is helpful information, but to break it down. Like I said before, there's a lot of noise, a lot of complexity. I like to simplify it. And I've done that in all of the podcast episodes. Short and sharp, here it is. So you can listen, re-listen, all the things. It's designed to be a really helpful tool to educate and empower. You can check out the resources page on our website as well, but I tend to find that people prefer to listen these days. I know I do. If it's easier, reach out and have a conversation with me and ask the questions. I'm always so happy to answer questions.
Amazing. I would love to shift angle a little bit now, because you have the added bonus of working with us. We are each other's client, and I'm so grateful for that. And I wanted to ask you a couple of questions about working with us, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
You've seen firsthand what it's like working with a really strong financial team, and you have two parts of that, us and your accountant. How has this changed the way you look at the legal side of things for your clients or even your own business?
First of all, in my own business, it has been a game changer. I talk often about the complexity of the legal side of things and how people can find it overwhelming, and there's a lot of noise. I personally struggled when I was starting in the earlier years of my business. I struggled with what I found to be overwhelming in terms of the financials. So, and people often sort of raise their eyebrows at me and go, oh, but you're a lawyer, you're supposed to know this. I know the law, I don't know the numbers. And I would avoid looking at profit and loss. I absolutely didn't know how to read a balance sheet. I wasn't interested, didn't want to know, just didn't want to know. It was all too overwhelming. So what I discovered, working with a strong financial team like your team, having an excellent accountant like I have now that I can rely on, not only does it give me confidence and peace of mind, I make more money. I'm just going to say it. When I know my money, I make more money. And people might think that's very, I don't know, woo-woo, or I bet you don't. I bet you do. I absolutely bet you do, because I know how to read the statements. I know where the revenue needs to sit. I know how to read a balance sheet. And thanks to you, I can dive into my Xero file any day of the week, and I know how to read the reports. I know what I'm looking for. I know how to access it. I didn't know how to use Xero before. I had Xero, but I didn't go in there because I didn't know what to do with it. So it has been a game changer in terms of confidence, to have my finger on the pulse with all of the numbers in my business. And I'm not kidding, I make more money. You've seen it. You've seen incrementally the growth we've had year after year. And I know you didn't ask this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I have high expectations. I deliver high levels of service. I have high expectations, sometimes to the point where my husband says to me, Tracey, you need to calm down. Your expectations are really high. That person isn't quite what you think they are. They haven't really let you down that badly. But I do have high expectations, and I own that. I also think, and I know you'll say I'm not, but I also think I'm a high maintenance client. I expect what I expect. I need it delivered when I just need things done as and when you promise, and in the way that I like. And not once over the last 4 or 5 years since you've been supporting me have you or the team let me down. And that is huge. That is huge. And even my husband's like, oh my gosh, Lisa's still your bookkeeper. She must be very, very good at handling you. I was like, well, she doesn't handle me. She's just excellent at what she does. So I just wanted to say that. And I know you say I'm not high maintenance, but I still think, based on what my husband tells me, that I probably am. But that's testament to you and the team, because you haven't let me down once. That's huge.
I'm speechless. Thank you. Because yes, you're not high maintenance. We have very strict processes and checklists and balances in place, and our not keeping the numbers on track is not only that's not our center of what we do. It's half. The other half is looking after the client. So I'm glad you feel that way. Thank you.
Lisa, I have business owners who know me well, some who have become friends, who have said to me over the years, my gosh, if you're still happy with her, we want her. Because that's just, I make no secret of high expectations that I set. So it's not just me, it's others, but we'll just leave it there.
Yeah. We'll move on to my next question for you. What would you say to someone who's not sure if having a bookkeeper and a numbers expert really make a difference? Because so many go, I do it myself. I can click all the numbers in Xero. What would you say to that, having this circle of experts around you that you have with your numbers?
Yeah, a few things. One, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. Two, bookkeeping is more than just clicking numbers and buttons in Xero. Perhaps people need to be burnt in order to learn that. Sometimes I do think that they do need to come unstuck in terms of GST allocations or misappropriate or just misallocating. That can cause so many headaches down the track. I've had poor clients reach out to me with sort of damages issues in relation to negligence. But anyway, it's more than just ticking boxes and reconciling. But three, working with somebody in your business to help manage the numbers and put those solid financial systems in place, like a good bookkeeper, is a game changer. Because like I said, hand on heart, you know your money, you make more money.
It's one of my favorite sayings. You tell your money where to go, not wonder where it went. And I feel like that is the evolution for you. You now know the numbers, you're watching it, you're directing it where to go. And so, of course, it's gone up.
It is. It's just, it's a game changer in terms of mindset, focus. There's so many cliche things we can say, where attention goes, energy flows, all of those things. But the truth is, as the confidence builds in the space, it's almost like it becomes magnetic. The
Confidence.
the confidence
Nailed
grows.
it.
Yeah.
And because I know you won't mind me saying, I've always gently nudged you, hop into Xero, have a look, read the reports. And so for you to openly say you now read the reports, that's growth in itself. And you can now make decisions based on numbers instead of just recording stuff from 6 months ago and going, what do I owe? Like, where did I land? You already know before we send you the BAS what it's going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Every time. Yeah.
Great.
So we've talked about that, and it is a game changer, hand on heart. I attest to that. But I'd now like to flip this around because I've got some things that I wanted to ask you, because you said at the beginning this is a special episode. So why is this a special episode?
This is a special episode, one, because it's episode 100, and I am so chuffed to have achieved that milestone, because so many podcasts never make it past 1 or 2 episodes or 10 episodes and go too hard, too much time, and don't get any downloads and all those kind of things. And I did pause the show for a little bit to regroup and focus on the business. And so to come back and finish that episode, well, there, I've said the next bit, to pause the show. This is going to be the last episode for a little while, is why this is a special episode, a bit of a celebration, which is why I asked Tracey to come on as a special guest for episode 100. I'm going to pause the show and focus on some different areas of the business.
Wow, episode 100 and a pause. And I love that. I love that you're focusing on other areas of the business, but I also love that there's so many, there's 100 in fact, episodes that people can go back and nourish their desire for information on, that are always going to be there. They're not being removed. They're still there.
Exactly.
So, episode 100. Given that you've reached 100, what would you say would be your biggest takeaway or your biggest lesson from running a podcast for 100 episodes?
I didn't think I could do it. I think that's my biggest lesson. I decided wanted to do it, and I did. So many people don't start something because they go, I can't do that, or I don't know it, or that's too hard. Just start. And I think when you first said to me, do one, I went, no, I can't do it. And then you go, just do it. So I did it anyway, and here I am, 100 episodes. So that's one of my biggest personal things from 100 episodes. And the other is people listened to it. That's a big surprise for me. I didn't expect so many downloads or listens to a bookkeeping business podcast from me. I'm just blown away and grateful for how many people listen to the show. And it tells me that people want to learn this stuff. People want to know their numbers and grow their business. And that's really refreshing for me.
Yeah, they do. They so do. Of course they listen. My goodness, I listen to you say that and go, oh my gosh, of course. I listen to it. And I work with you. You've had on the podcast over the 100 episodes some really incredible guests, and you've had some such good and valuable conversations. Reflecting on the 100 episodes, what would you say is a consistent theme that comes up that business owners can take value from, or just or a challenge that they have? What's something that comes up consistently that you've found?
Once you start to learn your numbers and decide, I want to learn these and do them, everyone goes, it's so much easier than I thought. And that's come through from the podcast episodes. I've had people email me and say, I loved your episode on XYZ. I now understand that and I do it. And that's one of the common themes that has come up. Numbers are easy if you try. It's not something you innately know. So the fact to say, I'm not good with numbers is not an answer that you should give when you're asked why you don't know them. It's, of course you don't. You haven't learnt it or done the education that I have. And so to listen and learn and grow and find you can do this, it's a theme that comes up all the time. People are so surprised that they can know their numbers.
And let's just say, much like the legal side of things, as a business owner, you're not expected to know your numbers. You're not expected to know how to read, like me, a P&L and a balance sheet. You're not expected to know it. But by engaging with the right team, it's an education piece. It's an empowerment step. You build confidence so that you later then do know. Exactly like my story, exactly like where I started to where I am now. I love that. So it's the confidence piece.
Exactly.
I love that. I love that that's what you've shared that's come through. And I love that the podcast is still going to be on all the platforms so people can go and listen to help build their knowledge, help overcome some of the overwhelm, to build their confidence. And then when they're ready, reach out to someone like you to say, hey, it's time. We're going to bring you in as a bookkeeper, or would you be prepared to work with us as a bookkeeper? Because that's, again, the next level. It's a level up. And like I said, knowing your money makes more money.
It's priceless.
It is. Oh, I'm so privileged to have been on and recorded this with you for your 100th episode. Thank you so much for the podcast, Lisa, and all the value that you have shared. Because like I say, I work with you, but I listen to the podcast too. It doesn't have to be one or the other. They always have so much value. And I personally can't wait until the show comes back at some point in the future.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I love this conversation, and what a wonderful way to wrap up episode 100 and the show for now. Thank you for our wonderful chat. I will, of course, link all the places to find you in our show notes, but where would you like business owners to best find you?
Oh, of course, over on Instagram, we're at TM Solicitor, or the website, tmsolicitor.com.au. That's where you'll find us. I'm very active on Instagram and always happy to answer questions.
Amazing. Thank you so much again for your insights and conversation today, Tracey.
My pleasure. Thanks, Lisa.
So, this brings us to the end of our 100th episode. It was an absolute joy to have Tracey back on the show, her insights and experience, the way she breaks down legal risks and realities so many business owners overlook. It's always so powerful to hear from her. So if this episode has given you something to think about or reminded you to check in on a few things in your own business, I'm so glad. This is what Your Bookkeeping Matters has always been about, helping you feel confident, more informed, and more in control of your business. Thanks again to Tracey for being a part of this special milestone and for being such a brilliant voice of support and strategy, not only to me, but loads of business owners. And to you listening, if this is your first episode or your 100th, thank you. I am so grateful for your time, your ears, and all the conversations through my show. For now, I'm pressing pause, but the episodes will still be here for you anytime you need them. All the places to find me, my practice accounted for you, and our learning hub are also linked in the show notes. None of those are pausing. And I would love it if you jumped on our numbers list to keep in the know on all things numbers and what we're up to. Don't forget, your bookkeeping matters, your business matters, and you don't ever have to do it all alone.